Yes, sure, of course. So welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Emma.
So we're live streaming on YouTube now.
Great.
Okay, we'll admit all.
Hi, welcome everybody, Jai Janendra. And I think welcome to the first YJ event of 2021. Happy New Year to everybody. So today's session is focused on the census, and we have different speakers, but to start the event, we'd like to start with a Navkar mantra, and this will be performed by Disha Harrier.
Thank you, Bhavesh.
Yeah.
Om Namo Arihantanam. Om Namo Sitanam. Om Namo Ayariyanam. Om Namo Vajayanam. Namo Loye Savasahunam. Eso Panchanamo Karu. Sava Pavapanasano Mangalanancha Savesim Parhamam Havai Mangalam Parhamam Havai Mangalam.
Beautiful, Disha, thank you very much. And today's event is focused on the census occurring this year in 2021. Today's event is called Census 21, Choose Other, Select Jain. We have some great speakers coming up, including Stephen Paul, who's with Emma Taylor from the Census Engagement Manager for the Office of National Statistics, otherwise known as ONS. Stephen represents Barnet and South East area. We then have we have a discussion with Mehul Sangrachia, Managing Trustee for the Institute of Jainology, and Sanjay, also joined by Sanjay Jagatia, who's also from the ONS, as Community Advisor for the Indian community. And today we also have Vinod Bhai Kapashi and Ashik Bhai will be here to help with any questions you have and cover Gujarati. We have to give extra special thanks to Vinod Bhai because we're using his Zoom account. So thank you very much. And if I can hand over to Stephen, who will be giving the first presentation of the evening.
Is that okay, Bhavesh? Can everyone see my screen?
Perfect.
Yes,
Yeah?
we can't see
Perfect.
you.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Young Jains for the invitation for Emma and myself and Sanjay from the ONS. Gives us a really great opportunity to give you an overview of census and the benefits of census. So thank you very much, especially to Bhavesh and your committee for setting this all up. So I think Bhavesh alluded, my name's Stephen Powell. I'm the Census Engagement. Start my video. Okay, so is that ready? Okay, yeah. Is that okay now? Can people see me?
Perfect.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so my name is Stephen Powell. I'm the Census Engagement Manager for Barnet South West, and Emma looks after the northeast of Barnet. There are actually 200 of us, clones, yes. And there's 100 community advisors, one of which is Sanjay, who looks after Coventry and the Warwickshire area. But that shows you the sort of level of commitment the ONS really put into making sure that census is successful. And we're just embarking on a campaign to take on roughly about 30,000 people across England and Wales to help what we call enumeration, and actually getting census distributed where it needs to be distributed, collecting data, all those sort of things. And one of the major tasks afterwards is follow-up for some of the people that don't complete on time. So what I would like to ask, if you do have any questions during the presentation, if you can hold them to the end, and either myself, Emma, or Sanjay can answer those. If there are things that we cannot answer, then we'll take them away and provide answers back to Bhavesh as quickly as we possibly can. So hopefully that's pretty okay. So let's get into the main topic of the day of the presentation. Okay, so census is a survey that happens every 10 years, and the desire is for everyone in the country to take part and complete a return. As Bhavesh said, it's run by the Office for National Statistics, the ONS, and they're responsible for arranging and organising, carrying out the census, collecting all the data, and then processing the data afterwards. Normally it happens right across the UK, but for a number of reasons, including COVID, Scotland and Northern Ireland have decided to postpone theirs. Another key thing, the ONS reports directly to Parliament. We are not under any ministerial control. So that means we're not guided by any particular political drivers. We're asked by Parliament to do things like gather data, analyse, and then present results. And that's just our remit. It's not for ONS to comment. And obviously at the moment we're pretty high profile. Most of the data you see around COVID comes from data gathered by the ONS and then put out obviously into the public domain and given out to the news wires and stuff like that. It is a legal requirement that all households, basically we try and record everyone in the country on census form. Very lofty type of aspiration, but nevertheless, I think if any of you know about data and statistics, unless you get to certain sample sizes and an amount of data input, then it's very difficult to draw very accurate estimations or conclusions from data if it's not as wide-ranging and as detailed as you need. One of the first questions most people will ask, really, especially in this day and age where data security is such a hot topic in the social media spheres and all that, how safe is your data? In summary, it's very safe. It's protected by law. The ONS do not share the data we gather from the census with any other government departments. Any personal data, rather. We will pass, obviously, the outputs of the census, so whatever goes into the public domain, but none of that information that goes into the public domain will include or can be drilled down to identify any one person or even particular small groups of people in a particular locale. The reason we have obviously names on the form is that we need to avoid double counting, because some people may submit a submission twice, and that may even happen, especially more so with online. So why do we have it? As many of you know, if you're making decisions about services or making decisions even in business and especially at a governmental level with policy and all that, unless you have some pretty sound and coherent and accurate data, you can't really make good, sound forecasts or economic policy, social policy. You can't plan the national or local level because you don't have the core data. You may not know where to site particular services. You don't know where to actually provide services for the right place, for the right type of people that you're trying to target. So census gathers that information and puts it out in the public domain, so governments and private organizations can plan either their business, or we can plan how a country develops economically and socially. It also allows us to keep a very good picture of the demographic makeup of England and Wales, and normally it would be the UK. So some specific examples, if you like, of the types of areas that this census data is used. Pretty obvious in public health and social care, developing hospitals, expanding healthcare services. You need the data to understand where people are, where that need is, to be able to make the decision to invest and expand, or even to downsize. You know, as maybe groups of people or populations get less and less dense in one area because they maybe move off to work in other conurbations. It's no good having massive infrastructure facilities if a lot of those density of that particular area is actually dropping because people are moving away for work reasons or social reasons or quality of life reasons. Housing, you need the data, where to build the houses, how much housing you need to provide. We need to look into the future to see, you know, what is the likely population growth in particular boroughs, local authority areas, even down to election ward areas, because that will drive decisions on where to put private and public housing, where to develop these type of facilities. And the same is true for education, transport. There's no good building stations, extending the underground or the overground services unless we see the travel patterns of particular people, where they're commuting to work and these sort of things. Obviously, in normal times, no one's commuting now, but there will be a day at some point where commuting will start up again. It's also important to note that a lot of the census data, we often put it into the public domain once it's ready for consumption. And charitable organisations, the NGOs, they all use this data as well. It's very important to them. Charities like Jains UK would want to know if there are particular areas where there are larger concentrations of older people. If their particular average age is getting of the population in the area is getting higher by the year, because it could mean that maybe Jains UK need to start up a local office and start providing the services that they provide to that community. It would also, you know, if you relate it back to your own community, the Jains, it may give you some insights into where there are pockets of people in your community that you may not be aware of, and you can reach out to you know, provide services to them and support them. So Census Day is Sunday the 21st of March, and that's basically when the census takes a snapshot of England and Wales. We're starting what we call the digital first census, so we very much want people to complete submissions online. People will get, every household will get a letter, a postcard, basically advising the census is coming, And then every household will get a letter with what we call a unique. That unique ID code will allow you to log on to the census website, and you can do your submission online. But obviously, there's a lot of people that maybe don't have access to the right RT, don't have broadband access, have other challenges, maybe visually impaired, hearing impairments, or other challenges they have in terms of completing the census. So there, you can have paper copies. You can request those from the National Call Centre. There's large print. There are many other forms of being able to participate in census. And as our messaging to the public gets more refined and we get closer to Census Day, a lot of our advertising and a lot of the messaging we will be putting out as census engagement managers will about what these other channels are. But there will be a national call centre. People can phone up and do it over the phone with an agent. We have translation services for people to who don't speak any English or very little English, can complete their census via the phone. Excuse me. So one of our key roles as a census engagement manager is to engage with organisations like the Jains, like maybe Sikh communities, the Muslim community, particular Eastern European nationals, to make people aware about census, encourage them to participate, and really overcome any of the fears they may have about census. Some of the barriers we know that we will experience is that some communities are very suspicious of any sort of government interaction or providing information to governmental organisations. So, this is why we're sending out messages about security. The data's not shared with any other government departments. It doesn't affect or impact your claims for job seekers or your other social security claims or your applications for social housing. None of our data is shared at a personal level with any other government agencies. And that includes the security services. Security services are not allowed to have access to ONS data. So we're making as many routes available as possible to support everyone to be part of Census 2021. So multiple channels. Give you a rough idea, this is just the very local timeline. Obviously, Census has been in the planning for about a good 6 or 7 years now. In 2019, there was a very big census rehearsal, to make sure a lot of our processes, procedures, the sizing of our organisations, local and national, are fit for purpose. So now we're coming to the real sort of sharp end of the project. So ONS will start a national media advertising campaign. So what we call above the line advertising. So national newspapers, TV advertising, very probably visible on social media streams, may even be paid for advertising within Google searches and that type of thing, because we need to obviously to make as many people aware as we possibly can. Then towards the end of February, I said to you that the first drop through the letterbox will happen, an awareness card announcing that our census is coming, to start raising awareness for it, and then building up to that, there'll be some other drops with the letterbox until you get your actual ID code, and then obviously Census Day will happen on the 21st of March. The online capability should go live on the 15th of March, so you can actually complete your online submission prior to the 21st, and you can submit it, but obviously all we ask is that please can you be mindful that whatever data you put in is going to really, but not going to change between now and the 21st. So you'll notice when you do get down to it, there is a section on census for visitors. So let's say somebody is staying over with you that weekend of the 21st. Those people should actually be listed as visitors on your census return for the 21st. So if you're filling in prior to the 21st, then that sort of fact should be noted on your submission. And then we have a big follow-up phase, 1, 2, and 3, and this is to try and make sure that people that don't fill it in on a timely manner, we go and give some gentle reminders and ask them to kindly make their submission as soon as possible. Because hark back to the fact that without getting a certain percentage level of data returns, then it's very difficult to make really accurate forecasts for the future. So the amount of data we get, the accuracy and the quality of the data we collect on census is vital threshold, so that we can be sure that the forecasts that we are making based on that data will be reasonably accurate moving forward. So this is where myself, Emma, Sanjay come in, working with local community groups. And the reason we work with people like yourself, the Jains and all these other local community groups, is that you have a trusted relationship with all of your members or community. And we understand that, and we know that the Jain organisation will be able to provide a bit of advice and guidance to us to say how best to get our messaging across to your community. So this is our main goal. Take your advice on what channels to use, understand what barriers your community may have against or fears or reservations they might have about filling census. So that feedback is important to us, and then we can provide our information to overcome those barriers and allay those concerns. So this is why we try to work very closely with all organisations, community groups across the country, and that includes, low-income families. We're going through food banks, everything we can get access to, and use the channels that you have established already. Common question, well, what's in it for you? Well, all community groups want to serve their community as best they can. And our data will help community groups like yourselves understand, how many, for example, Jains there are in England and Wales, whereabouts they're located, and that enables the One Jain organisation or the Young Jains to really focus your services and build your community and develop your community in the England and Wales as you would like to. And that's the same for whether the Sikh community, Muslim community, Somalians, low-income families, the elderly, all of the groups similar to yourselves, all will use our information to focus their efforts, substantiate submissions for grants, charitable funding, increasing the size of your organisation. Someone like Jains UK, if they see there are particular growth areas of elderly people in a particular area, then the local Jains UK can actually make a business case for the national Jains UK to maybe fund more full-time workers, more full-time part-time workers, or an extra minibus to provide some services for those local people. So that's how it's all, you use the data at a practical level, and it might give you some insight to areas of the country where you didn't know there were any Jains, and now you can actually connect with them and bring them into your wider circle. So I've said a lot of these things already, but we're a contact point. Our census engagement managers and community advisors, we are the contact point for organisations like yourselves to get information. We produce lots of graphics, copy, information on security, leaflets, translation leaflets, and all those sort of things that we can make available to your group and all the other groups, community groups, to help get the messaging out there. So that's basically our reason for our existence in this role. So we're here to help and serve you. We can hold virtual Q&A sessions. Obviously, our original purpose was to get out and meet the community, but obviously we've as a world, if you like, have been struck down with COVID, so now we have to try and do it in a different way. So we're trying to be as involved as possible, making ourselves as available as possible via events like today, via the phone, or even simple Q&A on emails, and providing some information to you that you can pass on to your community. We have lots of language skills within the ONS, the community advisors especially. If I mentioned, but Sanjay is a Gujarati speaker, but we have quite a range of community advisors that speak quite a wide range of languages. So if needs be, we can try and get access to some of those to support sort of small groups that definitely need that language support. So the final slide really is some contact details for the three of us. We're easily accessible via email. Visit the main website, which is census.gov.uk. That gives you a lot of the information I've given you. It's all in the public domain. If you want to have a look at the questionnaire, there's a URL there that will take you to the household questionnaire. At some point, we will be able to maybe share the online questionnaire, which is not too different. But the online questionnaire is a little bit smarter, obviously. It can suggest, there'll be drop-down boxes to choose options and all those sort of things. And it can suggest, you start typing in things and it will suggest like addresses and all those sort of things to make it easier and quicker to complete your census. We have presence on all the three main social media channels: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we can be followed on there. And we will hopefully soon have some social media phones. Well, we have social media phones, but hopefully within the next week or so, they should all be active, and we can even join your groups and we can post stuff or answer questions via some of your social media channels. So I hope that gives you a good overview of census, what it is, why we need it, when it is, and how important it can be to yourselves and your community. So I think I'm happy to take some questions now, and I'll stop sharing. Is that okay, Bhavesh, or will you force me to stop sharing? Oh, right, you force me.
You can. Oh, okay. You stop sharing. That's fine. Stephen, thank you very much. Round of applause. Virtual round of applause. Thank you very much. That was, a perfect introduction to the topic we're here to discuss today. I think you've answered a lot of the what, how, when, where questions. I think the information's all there. Looking in the chat, just some of the quick questions were, will the slides be available at the end of this presentation, at the end of this meeting?
They certainly will, yes.
Excellent. And we'll find a way of communicating that back to Young Jain members at the end of this, probably through the website, probably through the newsletter.
Okay.
And that's brilliant. Thank you very much. We do have a Q&A session at the end of this session, and that goes until 8:55. And I think now we're going to go into more of the why. Why should we fill in the census, and what importance does it have to the Jain community this year? And just so you know, I think the next opportunity to complete the census is 2031, so that's another 10 years.
That's correct.
So this year is a really important year to fill it in correctly for the community. And onto the next part. And Pulisha said, so we have the Zoom comments and the Zoom chat. I can see the questions are going up, and I'm keeping a record of all the questions. And anything that can't be answered today, I'll collect together. I've already been collecting the questions already, and we'll have a Q&A session at the end of the session. Stephen, if you can hang on. Stephen.
Yeah, I will do. Yeah, no problem at all.
Brilliant. I can see Emma's answering the questions in the chat as well. And now just for a introduction video. So this is, I think, over to...
I can share the video.
Over to Brittany. Thank you. Thank
you. Census Day is on 21st March 2021. The census is a survey that happens every 10 years and gives us a picture of all the people and households in England and Wales. By identifying as Jain, you will help make sure that we are considered in decisions on funding and services. This may include whether local hospitals serve Jain meals, schools teach Jainism in RE, or councils provide suitable care homes and crematoria. Census 2021 will be available in both electronic and paper formats. In both formats, question 16 asks for your religion. This is a voluntary question, but if you would like to be identified as Jain, here's your chance. Select Other and either write or type in Jain. So remember, choose Other, select Jain. You can get more help and information from your local Jain organization.
Lovely, thank you. Very nice video. And now we have Mehul Sangrachia, Managing Trustee of the Institute of Jainology, to pick up where the video leaves off. And I think I can see the information is coming up. Thank you very much, Mehul. The star of the show in person, the star of the video.
Thank you so much, Bhavesh. It's strange listening to your own voice on the screen. Can I start by saying a big thank you to Young Jains for holding this important event. We only have a few weeks now to the census, and so it's very timely. And also, my thanks on behalf of the Institute of Jainology and everybody in the Jain community to both Stephen and Emma for their input tonight and their constant availability to help with these sorts of events. And also, as Bhavesh said, to Emma for putting answers to the questions that are on the chat. Please keep them coming, and I'll be happy to try and help them along. So I haven't mentioned a couple of people. Firstly, we had Neil Townsend, who is the Director for Census Partnerships, on our event in December. And we've been pushing census for many years now. I think it's coming up to over 3 years. And so tonight, I'm also really happy that we've got Sanjay Jagatia with us, who has very bravely agreed to answer some questions directly with all of you here. So welcome, Sanjay. I think you're on mute. That wasn't going to be a way to get out of answering questions. So welcome. Thank you for being here. You're a community engagement manager. What does that mean?
Yeah, so my role is to really sort of engage with the Indian community in my area, basically to give them all the support they need leading up to Census Day on the 21st. So all these difficult questions that have been asked today on the Zoom call, it's not always possible to actually engage with the communities at the moment. Some have the accessibility of having Zoom to do that, but we're trying to find all sorts of methods to try and encourage as many of the Indian community in my role to try and get them to know about the census, the importance of why they should actually take part in the census as well.
And I think that's a very good point, because the census itself is on the 21st of March. But census forms online and offline will both be available before that time. How do people actually get hold of them? If they want to fill it out earlier in the month, for example.
Well, they'll have an opportunity as soon as the actual census forms come to the doorstep, where you have an identified number, a digit number, where people can start to fill in, as Stephen said earlier on in his presentation, before the actual census day, which is on the 21st of March. We also will have contact centres right across the country, where people can actually, hopefully, dependent on COVID-19 and the situation, where people will be able to go in there, and we'll have our workers there and our staff there to be able to help them fill out those forms. We've also engaged with lots of places of worship in anticipation that COVID will open up, and temples and community centres have come on board as well, where their volunteers and their members of their community will also help members of their community to fill out the forms as well.
Excellent, and that's the same for the Jain community. So we're waiting to see what happens with COVID, and if it does ease up a bit, again, Jain temples and centers will be open with even laptops and Wi-Fi for people to come and fill forms out there. Or if not, then we may have to end up with WhatsApp and Zoom as a means of supporting the community, in addition to all the work you're doing. And absolutely. I think that it gives them, gives them an opportunity to contact either, and I think that's really good. So, as Stephen said, the census is really about data. And I just want to explore that a little bit with you, because I think it's important to understand data. When the data is collected, how long will it be before that data is available?
Interesting question, actually, a very good question as well. It's normally about within the first 12 months, there will be data available, as Stephen said as well in his presentation, for local authorities, central government, charities, statutory authorities across the country. That data will be available to them and yourselves as communities as well, to be able to extract some of the details that may be on that data that you can actually use for your community as well.
And when you think about that, who are the sorts of people who actually make real use of the data? I mean, one example that I hear often is hospitals, and when you think about hospitals from a Jain perspective, especially in this scenario where family are restricted from entering hospitals because of COVID, the sorts of things that we think about from a Jain perspective are chaplaincy, wanting to talk to somebody or in some sort of way. Also, Jain food, which tends to have a specific diet, crematorium. Is this the sort of services that you see hospitals and the NHS planning on the back of census data?
Well, absolutely, Mehul, and as those who know that myself and Mehul and also Nemubai is on the call as well, that I know that the Jain community has been working on the census, not just for 3 years, but the actual work started 7 years ago, on a national scale. And you see some of the successes that happened from the last census 10 years ago, where, for example, the Muslim Council of Britain, they used the census information to be able to ensure that there were Muslim chaplains in majority of the healthcare provisions, whether it was hospitals, clinics, doctors, that type of thing. The Jewish community has also used it for prison chaplaincy work and other sort of type of work as well. So there is added value and benefit here that you as a community will be able to look for your information to press the governments and press the local authority, whoever may be, to have the provision for whatever you think as a community that your community needs. I mean, you've already gone, 10 years ago, whoever heard of Jain meals inside an airline? And now every single airline across the country that leaves Britain, for example, you have the Jain meal on there. So I think that it clearly shows the type of information you can use as communities, whichever community you are, to use as far as your campaigning is concerned. And like I said, really pleased to see the work that the Jain community and Nemubai and yourself, Mehul, have been doing on a national scale to get to this stage. And I know that 7 years ago, you already knew about census happening in 2010, and great piece of work that's happened, to get your community motivated. This is an example that we in ONS see of a community working together and encouraging, members of your community to take part in census. It's one of those things that, it's quite frightening when it comes to the door. There's a 32-page document. People don't know whether, what to do with this. And I think, you're well ahead of the game, in ensuring that your community know. But I think at the same time as well, this is the first time that census has done, or ONS have done something in this way where, as Stephen said, over 200 members of staff, from community engagement managers to community advisors to field representatives are going to be out there to try and encourage as many people to understand about census and fill that form in. Because, you're talking of 10 years later, and the data that's going to be captured today or this year is going to exist for 10 years. And I know that, the frustration that you guys have had over the last 10 years of trying and make things happen, but the lack of data that proved, as far as your community is concerned, how many people and the needs of that community were. This is your chance.
Absolutely. And when you look at the last census, we as a Jain community ran a campaign that was around identifying yourself as Jain. But I think because we weren't specific enough, explicit enough, there was possibly some confusion. And in the end, we believe only about a third of the UK Jain population. We think the UK Jain population, through surveying the Jain communities, is about 65,000. And about 20,000 responded. And that's why this year, we've become, I think, a bit more specific with this slogan of, choose other, select Jain, in regards to the question about that. But just coming back to what you said, I mean, in terms of, Jains and Jainism becoming more aware in the UK, one of the other things that we're also really keen on is that this sort of data is used by public broadcasters like the BBC, for example. And, this year we, as Jains kind of celebrated the fact that, Her Majesty talked about Jains in her, Christmas speech, that the BBC put it up for Diwali and so on. And I think it's, for us, it's important that there is a reflection of the fabric of the community, that the patchwork that there is in the public broadcasting. I mean, is that something that you see happening with the census data?
Well, Mehul, the first and foremost thing is that census is totally about what you want to put down on the census form, what ethnicity, what religion, what faith you have. You need to actually decide, and individuals need to decide what they want to do. The fact that the community has come together, you obviously have a plan, of what you wish to do with the data or the census from this year, which is far ahead of many communities that I've spoken to in the Indian community in particular, with regards to what they see. And it's about us educating them at this stage about how important it is for a census. But like I said, you've been far ahead of the game. You know exactly what you want to do. Census data, and as Stephen said earlier on, that, the ONS data, it's received so much traction. Every day you see the COVID figures that come in, and the reputation of the actual data that the ONS gives has received so much praise, not just from local authorities and central government, but healthcare, hospitals, you name it. That ability is there for them to be able to look at that data. It is important from my point of view. It's very, very important, whichever religion, whichever faith, whichever ethnicity you are, I think it's very, very important to be counted. And I think more so, it's very, very important to be represented. And I think, you can see that, in today's age, COVID-19 has proved the fact that, you've seen reports about BME communities, Asian communities who have been severely affected by COVID. And I think that the census is going to actually allow any such pandemic that may happen in the future, any crisis that may happen in the future, to clearly identify the need of why certain services may need to be provided. And if that answers your question, that this is such an important time at the moment for people to be part of the census, so that in future, that government funding sourcing is adequately allocated to where it actually matters.
Absolutely. And I think you made a couple of very interesting points there. The first is about a personal wish. And for us, as a Jain community, our aim in driving this campaign of Choose Other Select Jain isn't in any way to kind of dictate to people that that's what they should do. It's to give them an option that if they wish to identify as Jains, then this is the way that they can do it. And that, will make it easier for the ONS to collate data about where Jains are. Coming back to that, I mean, the one thing that I wanted to pick up on is that, when you think about what is happening in our country and why we think this is important, there are two, really big facts here. One is that we have an aging population, which means that, the population is probably going to rely more on services. And currently, because of COVID, we're in a position where, there's going to have to be a great economic recovery over the next few years. And therefore, money is probably going to be targeted even more tightly than before, because it's probably, in shorter supply. So on those two counts, I think, for us, we see that, identifying where Jains are is going to become particularly important. Are you, do you see the same sort of things?
Well, Melbai, that I look at it from myself and my own community, and I look back and think, what has my community achieved in the last 10 years? What have we got over the last 10 years? Some of the things that we're talking about, how important census can be. And don't forget, census and the results that come from there is only as good as how you use it, how you use those to your advantage. So I've been analyzing for my community and thinking, well, where have we received the funding? Where have there been healthcare activities that have happened? Where has there been chaplaincy in my community? So these are the type of things that in my mind that, it will determine for us to be in a better position to be able to ask for that, going forward from Census 21. But the only thing is, it's not just from what you find from the authorities about giving that information. It's about you as a community to be able to really strip down this ONS report. And to see exactly what's actually come out of it, and the identification. You mentioned that there are 40,000 plus Jains in the UK. When you look at the last census, it was probably half of that amount, and you can see then that how resources have probably been given to you over the last 10 years because of perhaps the number of the size of your organization, which truly, from somebody who's been involved with your organization, 20,000 is nowhere near what the true figure of the Jain community probably is in the UK.
No, I mean, we believe it's about 65, and that's just, taking the data from all of the individual communities and putting it together, 65,000, which, and so our view is that this year, because we know some of that population is transient and so on. So, we're looking for at least 50,000 as a number, because we believe that would be a much better reflection of, how many Jains there are. And for us, as you say, it's very important to figure out where they are in the country and also the information related to them. So one of the things that we have done is, working with the ONS for the last 3 years, is basically that, agreed with them that once this data is fully analyzed, one of the things that we want to do is work with them to actually put together a publication on Jains in the UK, taking all the ONS data and actually just creating something which the communities, the people, on this call in the communities can actually use for themselves, but also, take to their local councils or hospitals or others if they need to sort of show that there is a Jain population and, use official ONS data. And it's good to know that will be available, within 12 months or start becoming available within 12 months.
Absolutely, and I know for a fact that your work with the ONS over the last 3 years, even with the testing over 18 months ago, has led to these conversations that you've had with the ONS about how you see that you're going to be looking at that data and whatever information that they're going to be able to provide for you as a result of the census. But again, Mihal, it really, the one thing that we as communities have to learn and know that, we are being given a choice here. This is a choice for you to represent yourself as individuals from the Jain community how you wish to. Nobody's forcing you to actually be labeled into a corner of a bracket of a group that you probably don't feel that you fit into. And I think, this is fantastic from my point of view, that, Census and Neil and others have worked with you to clearly show you that and to give you confidence, that procedure and that policy is there for you to be able to do that. It really is about choice and representation, about what you want to fill in and how you want to be identified.
Absolutely. And, one of the things that for the last 3 years or so, we've been, pushing very hard for is to have a Jain box separately so that, it would be on the face of the census. And, to that, we've, sent petitions to Downing Street, had meetings in Parliament, all of those things. Sadly, what has happened through no fault of anybody else's is about a year ago, if you remember, Parliament was prorogued, and then there was an election, and then we've got COVID. And so in all of that, time has gone by. But in that, I have to say a big thank you to the ONS, to Neil and his team, because what they have done is said, look, this may not be possible, but let's work with you to make sure we drive, as much as we can, a campaign to help Jains understand how they can select Jain if they want to. And then once the data is there, help you put it together so you understand it, understand the demographics, understand, things about professions, employment, age, and so on, so that as a community, we can plan to support people within our community, and also, help to lobby local authorities, local schools, local hospitals, in order to ensure that there are Jain facilities available.
Absolutely. And I think the same goes for, the local authorities and the charities and the funders and the people who provide the resource to be able to utilize this information, even though there may not be a Jain tick box like you wanted this time around. It still has given us an absolutely, your community, a great opportunity to fill that other box. And to put whatever you feel is appropriate to your community, and that, so everything is not lost. Even with what happened in Parliament 1 year ago, the opportunity is still there to be able to be recognised and represented.
Absolutely. So my final two questions for you, Sanjay, and I know then Pavesh wants to have a Q&A, and so my final two questions. The first is in terms of what people can do, because there are people on this call from, who represent Jain communities elsewhere and so on. In terms of getting that message out to, the Jain communities, what sort of things is ONS doing, and what sort of things do you think we should be doing to put the message out that if you want to be, seen as Jain or identified as Jain, then this is a way to do it, and to help with the messaging that you're putting out about the census in general?
Yeah, this is the first time I've worked with many sort of social work and also governmental work as well. I was really impressed when I came to ONS to see the massive resources that have been put together for every single community, right across the board, from literature and social media posts that people can use, imagery that they can use in Gujarati, in Hindi, in Somali, in Urdu, so many, Slovakian and Kurdish, there's so much. And I think that is available through ONS for us to be able to work with you. And the CEMs, the community engagement managers, and the community advisors are here really to actually be able to guide you through that process about, from today onwards, we are going to have separate types of messaging that goes out right up until 21st of March. And we're able to provide you with those fully approved ONS imagery for social media, text even for newspapers and any sort of magazines that you may have. And I'm sure that, Melba and others in Young Jain, you may well be called upon where there's an opportunity for a media interview where we want to actually utilize a case study perhaps of how a community can actually engage with the census. So there's opportunities like that that will come, and that's what our real role is to be able to help you and guide you through that process and give you whatever support you want. And like Stephen and Emma said, if there's something we can't answer, we will certainly go back and being able to try and, you might come up with something that we haven't looked upon. And that was interesting, Emil, by that, I was talking to a colleague of yours in Manchester. It was just out of chance, and he's not even in my area, and he was put through to me. And so I wanted to contact him to try and find the appropriate community advisor to speak to him. and he was telling me about census, and I actually thought he worked for census because he was talking to me about how the Jain community was so much involved in it, and the school children that he's got, from a very young age till the age of 14, 15, they're taking part in some arts and craft type of activities to promote census. And
let me just
these are the sort of things that we're looking for. These stories are amazing, how communities can get, even from a young age, from school age, about the census.
So let me tell you just a little bit about that, because I think it's really useful. So the gentleman is Mr. Hiren Vora, who is the president of Jain Samaj Manchester, and what he's done is he's got local children from the community to do either a little video or a little art or drawing or something about the message of the census, and about presenting the census and communicating it. And he's managed to get the Sheriff of Manchester, who is Her Majesty's representative up there, to be on a Zoom call to judge it and give prizes. And I'm actually delighted to say that Neil Townsend from the ONS has also agreed to come and do the same thing. So I think it's fantastic that, because as you know, as soon as children are involved, their parents get involved, and I think it's a great message. So my last
I'll certainly be using this as a case story, because I think these are the type of stories, Melbai, that we would want other communities to emulate. This is fantastic from a young age right up to people who may be on this call who are 60, 70, 80 years old, still engaging with census in the way that you have been.
Fantastic, that's great. So my last question for you, and it's actually something for you personally, that if any of these communities want you to come and maybe answer or explain some of this in say Gujarati, because normally it's those people, the elderly, for whom English may not be a first language, that may struggle with census questions or understanding what to do. I assume you're happy and available to do that.
Yeah, Melba, this is the first Zoom call that I've done that hasn't been in Gujarati, and I think it was refreshing for me to do it in English.
Well, if you want to close in Gujarati, we're very happy to hear it.
No, absolutely. Like I said, there's community advisors and community engagement managers right across the country. And in fact, we have over 16 community advisors who are specifically working with the Indian community. So, wherever there is a Jain local organization, guaranteed that there will be a community advisor there as well.
Fantastic. Well, again, very many thanks to you, to Stephen and Emma for coming this evening. I'm going to hand over back to Bhavesh to run the Q&A, because I know that the chat's been running quite fast whilst I've been talking. So thank you so much, Bhavesh, and over to you.
No, thank you, Mehul. Thank you, Sanjay. That was perfect. If your pen is hovering, your pen is still hovering above the form, please do rewatch this video. It was, I think, covered almost every area of this and all the benefits of filling in the form completely. So I'm opening up to the floor now for any questions and answers. I've been collecting all the questions. I can start reading them and read some of the answers and responses from Emma. So thank you, Emma. I see you've been very busy behind the scenes here, and I see you've been answering all the questions very, very pertinently. I don't see any hands raised, but if you want to unmute yourself or ask a question, or if you want to post another question in the chat, I can start from the first question that was asked. Can the census be completed online or only by paper that needs to be posted? The response from Emma was, for the first time the census can be completed online, households will receive a PIN number for them to log onto their account when the census starts on 21st of March. And Emma, do you want to elaborate on that, or is that?
I tried to keep it minimal as possible. I read the question that said, was asking whether it could only be completed online or only completed on paper. It can be completed both by paper and online. First, households will receive is a PIN number for them to log in and open their account and complete. However, on that document, there will be a phone number that they will be able to ring and ask for a paper copy if they would prefer to complete it on paper.
Brilliant, thank you. So just to clarify, the form is available online and in paper this year.
There is a question. I don't know if Stephen's there. I might have answered it incorrectly. Stephen, are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here, yes.
Stephen, someone answered me a question of whether there was a choice between them completing it at home or in the student halls. Can you answer that? Because I know you've been dealing with student halls. I thought there was a choice, but is there?
They can, well, you can complete the census from whatever location you are. My understanding is if you are a student in halls, okay, you should complete the census submission as a student in halls. If you, and also if you're at home, living in a, with at another home because you're not in your halls, then you can you can complete it there as well. It will get the double entry will get picked up, obviously as long as you're using the same names. But it is actually requested that you complete in both, because the reason being is that we need to get a picture of what the university cohort is like in, I don't know, say it's Portsmouth. Okay, you may not be in Portsmouth at this particular time because of COVID and this and the other, but the local authorities, if you like, would like a picture of what the normal university cohort would be like for planning purposes moving forward, and obviously for other reasons and stuff like that. So with that particular case with university students, then the request is to complete in both locations, and any duplication will get picked up.
Thank you. And my apologies for the lack of clarity in my initial response.
Thank you to both of you. Another quite important question: is it only one day, March the 21st, to complete the census? No, is the response. You do have more time to complete, and I think, Emma, you're going to confirm if it's at least 2 weeks before the event.
No, I was assuming before Stephen did the presentation, I was sort of that was an overcautious estimate that there would be at least 2 weeks. Looking at the screen that Stephen presented, there will be reminders sent out, and then the original PIN number will be sent. The census opens on the 21st of March, and subsequently will not be till the end of April that the case for non-completions will be handed over to a different team, which is to start more of an enforcement approach. Obviously, they're not going to be banging down and beating down the doors at that point. They were making the initial contact and letting people know it's compulsory. Is that correct, Stephen?
Yeah, well, the online capability will open from the 15th of March. So as I think I said in my presentation, you can start complete it online from the 15th. But obviously we're looking for the information as you believe it to be accurate on as it will be on the 21st. I'm not quite sure if you are getting paper copies, or if you've asked for paper copies, it probably will be coming out before Census Day. And again, I think if I remember rightly from the last one, you get them before actual Census Day, maybe 1 week or 2 weeks before the physical paper copies. And then you fill them in of what your situation is on the 21st, or you can fill it in after the 21st. The online will still be open after the 21st. I think it will probably be open for about 3 or 4 weeks, maybe longer, the online. But again, you would have to put your answers in that are relevant to the 21st of March. And you can still obviously send in your paper copies after the 21st of March. There's quite a long period after 21st when submissions can still be sent off or submitted online.
Oh, so that's it. That's clearer for me now. So the information they're asking for is as of the 21st of March. That's the key point, rather than, I understand better, and I work for the census team.
Excellent, thank you.
So just an addition to that, I don't know if I did mention or everyone's mentioned, but there will be physical census support centres located around the boroughs. You know, Barnet will have 2, Brent will have 2. Most of the London boroughs will have 2 or 3 physical centres where people can go into and get support to complete the census. Those will be open to around about the 4th of May, and they will open up towards the beginning of March, I think.
Great. There's a question as well regarding for besides geographical distribution, what other variables can be reported? Age distribution of Jains, dietary preference of Jains, etc. This would be a useful resource for us.
Yeah, well, by definition, you're going to get the geographical distribution. You will, if I'm right, people put their age on there, so you can search by age of Jains. I don't know if there's anything about
Diet.
diet or anything like that. There are some questions about health, but they're very general. Are you in very good health, or poor health, or whatever? So you will get some health-related information on people that have identified themselves as Jain. Yeah, geographic location. The sort of where they do, that sort of stuff, the type of employment they have.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah,
quite a few data dimensions that you can, if you want to look at the type of slicing and dicing of data, if you want to call it, if you go to the ONS website, you can look at the census data for 2011, and then you can pick another ethnic group or another religion and see how you can crunch that data in the various different queries that you want to put in. It's quite comprehensive.
That's interesting. Yeah, food is very important. At the physical events, we have to probably speak to the physical events.
If we have a look at the Jain skill set they've putting the best presentation I've seen yet together, I'm sure you will find someone that's more capable of number crunching than either me or Stephen, to be honest. It's a skill set, isn't it? And you have to put in the search tool and sort of learn to use it as you go along, how you get the best information out.
Bhavesh, I was just going to add that I actually have the Jain data set for the last census. And I'm happy to circulate it, to you, so that if anybody wants it, you can pass it out to them. It's slightly limited because of what was collected at the last census, but it's available, and you can see how the data is presented.
So Melba, you're the number cruncher that Emma was just mentioning. So you crunch that data.
The presenter, I kind of make it look nice and with little flowers and make it pretty. Somebody else has crunched it, I'm afraid.
It's funny. I'm studying this now, data science. So it's kind of
yeah.
I've got numbers. Looking at numbers now has become my thing.
Thank you, Bob. It's not easy.
No. I mean, if you could post a link to where the data is published as well, and I'll put that online as well. So that would be a really useful resource for everybody. Just one other question, or one or two other questions. A few years ago, the following communities demonstrated adequate user need for consideration for possible inclusion in the census: Gypsy, Irish Traveller, Sikh, Somali, Jewish, Roma, Korean and Kashmiri. Did the Jain community apply? And if so, in what respects were we inadequate? I think it's probably a question for Mehul, maybe.
Sure. Interesting question. So we actually started working with the ONS probably 3 to 4 years ago now. And I actually joined the Census Advisory Board, or Census Advisory Group as it was called at the ONS, which means I've been involved in planning this for at least the last 3 to 4 years. And at the same time, we expressed our interest for having a Jain tick box that was visible. We got the Jain All-Party Parliamentary Group, involved, and they actually did a speech on the floor of the House of Commons. We had several meetings with the ONS, both in Parliament and at the ONS. We also had a number of joint meetings with the Cabinet Office Minister, who is responsible, and I believe it was Chloe Smith at the time, who was responsible for the census. So we actually thought we were making progress, and it was progressing well. And there was a hope that we would, be able to achieve this. And then, as I said, for the last year and a bit, everything has stopped with the Parliament getting prorogued, and then the election, and then the COVID. And that's why when this started to happen, what we did was we thought, that we have to not only make a decision, but I think move forward. And so what we agreed was a full strategy with, Neil Townsend and the ONS about how, as a community, we would move forward, put in resources with the help of people like Steve and Emma and Sanjay as well, get events like this done to give people a choice. If they want to choose Jain, select Jain, this is how you do it. And also the other thing that we agreed is that when the data is available, we will publish the full data available on Jain's, both online and in a booklet format, so people actually have it. So you have that. I guess the only thing that we may not get out of this is that because it's not there visible on the face, when people are looking at this data, sometimes they only look at the data which is there rather than the other. But I think the job we have is now to make it available to everybody, because we'll have the data as far as we can. And, so it's definitely not one for a lack of trying. We've stood outside number 10 with 5,000 signature petitions and all the rest of that. But, we are where we are, and I think we have to move on and, make this a success, and that's what we're going to do.
Fine. I was just thinking, we don't know the benefits of filling in the form yet, because we're still in a situation where we haven't been, we're not recognised yet, or, not. So
no,
once we fill in the
but
form, then we'll know.
Absolutely, and I think that's why the key this time is to make sure that we get the message out, and then I think everybody who wants to select Jain can, and hopefully we get a good indication of where the numbers are, and as a community, provide even better support for them.
Great. Another question. Does the ONS use volunteers to enable collection of the census data? I actually used to do this as a job, to go knocking door to door.
To a certain extent, there is the ability to use CEMs, and CAs can use volunteers. But it's obviously it's a difficult area, because effectively we are civil servants, so we are bound by the Civil Service Code of Conduct and those sort of things. And it's obviously you can if you extend that level of responsibility on a volunteer basis, you can see it's quite difficult. In the main, all of the work is done by paid temporary employees. So, as a CEM, I'm on a temporary contract until the middle of May to obviously help drive census and participation, as is Sanjay and Emma and all of the CEMs and CAs. And all the field force will be employed on a temporary contract, but they are effectively civil servants and bound by the code. If there are volunteers who want to engage with particular, maybe smaller groups or promote census, then a CEM can support that, and we can provide materials and stuff like that to them, which is the standard material. So if people do want to do that, that's fine. There are still, I think there's still quite a big national recruitment campaign going on for field officers around the country, nationwide. So instead of volunteering, you might be able to get yourself a paid job. So that's if you go to the census jobs, search that on the web, you'll go to the ONS site, and we are still taking on field officers, probably all over the country, but I don't know which areas are full or not. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that's fine. Yeah, I think I used to be one, and it's a nice job to do in the summer, not so much in the winter.
Sorry, just interject on Stephen's response, because might seem unclear with the response that I gave. We will not recruit or use voluntary services directly. We will support volunteers that want themselves to support communities. Does that make sense? We're not able to go out and ask volunteers on our behalf to engage, but we can work with volunteers representing a community group.
Okay, yeah.
Probably made it more confusing. I can't go out on my street and say to my neighbour, oh, give us a hand, I need to go and do these promotions. But we will work with volunteers that normally would approach us on behalf of community groups they're working with and saying, help us get these, support us to get these people to participate.
And obviously, so the one big thing we all just forgot about was COVID. It's got to be done in anything like that. It's got to be done in a COVID safe way. So, you know, how useful a volunteer can be, because you know we can't be holding meetings or anything like that, and we wouldn't ask volunteers to be holding meetings. So, I think it might make it a bit difficult for a volunteer to do sort of any meaningful engagement work. But yeah, it's quite a big restriction on us, obviously.
Okay, I think final two questions, and I think we're quite running over time a little bit. So, what is the cut-off for the Jains to be recognised? Have a tick box as Jain and all the things mentioned before. Oh, and sorry, thank you, Mehul. Thank you for joining us today.
Bob, can you just repeat the question again? I didn't quite catch it.
Yeah, sure. What is the cut-off date for the Jains to be recognised?
Will it be on completion of the census?
On completion of the census, yeah.
Well, yeah, there isn't really a cut-off date per se.
I don't think sorry, Stephen, I don't think they mean the date. Suresh Bafna, I think he means like the number. Is there a golden number? That's the question.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, the golden number.
To be recognised. I don't know. I'm not aware there is. It would. I don't know what the criteria is to get a particular religion actually listed by name on the ONS form. That may just be down to lobbying, as your chairman Mehul said. So we can't really answer that. I'm not aware of any actual number threshold that you have to achieve.
Brilliant. And I think that's it. I have one final question. This is my question. If you tick the Hindu box and write Jain, what are the consequences? Do you count both?
No.
No.
It's one or the other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Very good. Okay.
That would be seen as convoluting it. My limited knowledge on statistics numbers is you cannot answer one question 2 times.
Okay.
It's one, you have one option for answering it. So if you enter in 2 points, I'm not sure what it would do, whether it would actually delete the question, response to that question, because it had been considered it had been inaccurately completed, or whether they would take the first point. I think it would possibly delete the whole question, because if you make amendments, you have to pinpoint it, don't you?
No, I think what happens on question number 16 on this year's census, you can only tick one box. But what it is that the question about religion and faith is a voluntary question. It's not a mandatory question actually on the census. So if you were to tick Hindu and then other and Jain, it will actually pick up the one major tick box that you've ticked, which is the Hindu box. So whatever you put into the box underneath would have possibly no consequences at all about, you know, whether you're represented as the Jain community. And I think that Mehul Bhai was saying this, that, you know, his interpretation of what happened in the previous census is Bhavesh. I think that's exactly what a lot of people did.
I got a feeling, actually, now that you say that.
I think this is what he was saying, that it looks like a lot of people did exactly that. And that's why the true figure for your community probably wasn't what you were expecting.
I think that's possibly what's happening and what's the undercounting. And I think I've even done that myself when I was very young, you know, when I was like a kid. So interesting. Okay, fantastic. So we will just offer Jaisuk Bhai and Vinod Bhai for any final words, and you can just unmute yourself. Sorry, you can see Vinod Bhai, if you would like to have any final words.
Thank you for organizing this. First of all, thanks to Young Jains. You have brilliantly handled everything. And our guests, they're marvelous. They've answered all the questions so nicely, you know, Sanjay Bhai, Emma, and of course, even. So everything has been done nicely. We'll present a video for your approval, as we were saying yesterday, and see how it is. And please let us know. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vinod Bhai.
Having us. It's been a pleasure. I'm just answering a question, actually. Someone's said, oh, it's quite important. My understanding was only if you choose others, you can type. Yes, that's correct.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely correct.
I just wanted to avoid any ambiguity over this question, because I think it's crucial, obviously, to the Jain community that it's clear. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely clear that, you know, for this particular community, the Jain community, you know, you've obviously looked at the census and you've said you want to actually tick the other box and then tap in or type in Jain. And if that's so be that your community wants to do, then, you know, that's exactly what you're allowed to do. But you wouldn't be able to tick any more of the boxes. It will just won't actually register any of the tick boxes that you actually tick on that box. And I think, you know, from the gist of the conversation that I've had today, it clearly looks like that, you know, you are an organization or a community that wants your faith to be represented. And the key thing here is that that particular question on census this year is actually a voluntary question. So, you know, not everybody has to fill that in. So, you know, if you feel that that's really important to you, you know, then you can clearly see that you do need to fill that question in.
Yeah, I think that's...
And get the message out.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And Jaisuk Bhai, I can see he's on the phone. So I think off the phone, Jaisuk Bhai, do you have any final message?
Yes, first of all, thanks very much to Young Jains for hosting the event, and the ONS people, Sanjay Bhai, Stephen and Emma, to come around, spend the evening with us and give us some more information. Thank you very much. And hopefully this time, what Mehul mentioned, last year we had sent about 5,000 emails from IOJ to telling people to fill in the forms. But unfortunately that time we didn't have sufficient information on how the forms were constructed, where to put the answers. So this, I think, was probably a little bit of confusion. But this year, I think ONS has been very good. They've been very open. Appointing the community officers, engagement officers, has been very helpful. I think that's given us confidence that, yes, we can carry on doing the work. And this time we will be successful. So thank you very much. Okay, Bhavesh, thank you.
Thank you, Jaisuk. Perfect. And sorry for running over. I think this is quite an important event, so it's fine. I think we've answered a lot of the questions today. If there's any more, please do get in touch with Young Jains. You can sign up for the newsletter. You can sign up for the for further information. There's forms being submitted on the chat, and information will be submitted again online on the Young Jains website to help with raising awareness, volunteering, and how you can help with this. I think very important opportunity, really. This next opportunity will be in 10 years.
Yes.
So just remember that.
So
I will be back in 10 years' time. And thank you. And very finally, Disha, will you perform the final?
Thank you, Pavish.
Thank you.
Kamemi Savijive Savijiva Kamantume Mittime Savabhuesu Veram Macham Nakenai. May I forgive all souls, may all souls forgive me. My friendship extends to all living beings, and my enmity is with none. Michami Dukram.
Michami Dukram. Beautiful, thank you. And thank you very much, everybody, for all of your time. Stephen, Sanjay, Emma, Mehul, if he's here, and all of the speakers and everyone that's been answering questions. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bhavesh. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bhavesh, it was absolutely wonderful to see Vinod Bhai on the call, somebody who's been a stalwart of your community for so many years. And, you know, to be on this call, I felt very honored, actually, very, very honored.
Thank you so much, Sanjay.
Honestly.
Great. Thank you so much, Sanjay. Sanjay, really wonderful to have you. Vinod, so much. Thank you so much for hosting also.
Thank you.
Emma and Stephen, if you're still there. Great.
Sorry, I can't provide any tea or anything.
So we're still live streaming on YouTube. Disha, are you able to stop now?
Yes.